Hello, welcome to Standard 7, Borrowing Money of the Oklahoma State Personal Finance Standards for Teaching Personal Finance. I'm Amy Lee with the Council on Economic Education, and we get to visit with Shay McCrary, a teacher at Muldrow High School. She is also an OC Master Teacher of Personal Finance, and she is going to walk us through the materials and resources that are provided by the State Department of Education for teaching Standard 7. So I will go ahead and hand it off over to Shay to share with us about all of these great resources.
Okay, thanks, Amy. Okay, so again, I am Shay McCrary from Muldrow High School, and I teach business math. And embedded in business math are the personal financial literacy standards. So I'm going to work on standards. And now that Amy has given me control of the screen, I'm just going to go ahead and hop in and put on. We're going to look into Standard 7, borrowing money, and I am choosing to utilize the teacher guide today because it is an abbreviated version versus going through each student module. And I use the OSDE modules as my primary method of teaching because the framework is fantastic. So in addition to that, I also use outside resources to enrich, enhance, and reinforce the lessons. I love games and I love students being interactive. So therefore, I try to incorporate just a few other things into the OSDE lesson. Okay, so Standard 7, there's 7 different sections. The student in this section will identify the procedures and analyze responsibilities of borrowing money. So I'm going to skip right on down. Here are the 5 lessons we're going to go through. The first one is remember the interest. I do love the framework of these modules. This lesson will explain the costs and benefits of borrowing money, as well as the 4 types of consumer credit. So it always gives you the lesson objectives. So after you've taught this lesson, students should be able to explain why people borrow money, identify rights and responsibilities, demonstrate when it is appropriate and not appropriate to borrow money, and then evaluate the impact of borrowing money. It's also important to go through all of the vocabulary that is associated with the lesson for good understanding by the students. In this lesson, I do focus heavily on interest and interest rate, secured credit and unsecured credit. So I'm going to skip on down here. It will tell you step by step how you can make this lesson work. There is a slide deck that is included with each module, and I do use those. Also, I'm going to skip on down here to number 2, where it says review Rick's plan to buy a new truck. Well, every lesson starts with a really good story that is relatable for the student. So in this one, Rick wants a new truck. His parents are like, great, let's figure it out. You've got a job, we can help you, but let's see if we can afford the payment. So they tell him to go ahead and decide how much the payment would be. So Rick's a smart guy. It's a $27,000 truck. He knows he can finance it out for as long as 6 years. And easy math, $375 a month. But as I tell my students, that's not how life works. How do you think a bank makes money? So he did not remember to include the interest. So again, you have to remember the interest anytime you're borrowing money. Okay, I'm going to skip on down here to number 7. This is a great activity. Explain that using credit can have adverse impact on their personal finances and lead to debt that is difficult to repay. I remind them that credit can be a good financial tool when used appropriately, but can cause problems in life. So there is an activity called Borrow or Do Not Borrow. And I have the students complete this because it's got great scenarios on there. For example, you're at the mall with your friends and you find a new pair of boots that you think you just have to have. They're $175. You don't have $175. Is this something that you would borrow money for? Would you put this on your credit card, or would you decide it would be better for you to wait until you've saved up enough money? And so when the students answer the questions, then we have a group discussion, and there's always definitely interesting responses. Okay, the alternative assessments are on each module. I do like these. A says have students write the definitions to the terms used in this lesson. I like more interactive, so as opposed to having them write the definitions, I created a Quizlet for reinforcement on the terms. They like that much better than writing them. And since we're kind of going paperless since COVID, that worked out really well this year. The second one is have students prepare an exit ticket showing 3 things they learned. I love exit tickets. It lets me know if I've done my job and lets me know if I need to reinforce any terms or things that we have learned. There is a great website called Nextgen. So on Nextgen, it's best to create your account. As you see, it says welcome Shay. So I'm already signed in. There's no cost, but if you create an account, then you can have access to all of the answer keys. If you don't create an account, you still have access to the units, but they will not provide you with the answer keys, and that's really helpful. So it's broken down into units. My computer's a little slow. Okay, so as you can see, there are multiple units here. Since we're talking about credit right now, in this one, types of credit, again, slow computer. Okay, there's the interactive that we're going to over in just a minute, but here is the get up and move activity, credit musical chairs. So it gives you an actual Google Doc that you can use with the students, or I always look at the answer key because it gives me the Google Doc as well as anything I need to make this more effective for my students. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the answer key. My kids love this. Okay, so here are the parts of the thing that you need to prepare the game. Here's how to play the game, and here are the answers. I'm just going to go through this really quick. So for instance, you first of all arrange chairs into a circle with fewer seats available than students in the class. Make a clear path for students to walk around the circle in musical chairs fashion. We've all played that as a kid. Access the slide deck of the game prompts, which is right up here at the top. They've already got the slide decks ready for you. It's already prepared. You can print out the answer sheet so you know on the fly whether students should be sitting or standing as a result of the questions that are asked. So I'm just going to pull up the slide deck really quickly. And they also say that you should have music playing, just like traditional musical chairs. Okay, so here are the slides, and they will know whether to sit or stand based on if they answer a question correctly. Okay, for example, if I put this slide up and it says sit down if an auto loan is considered to be unsecured. So in this case, they would stand because an auto loan is not unsecured. Obviously, there's collateral behind that. So it's a fun game. There's lots of laughter. Usually no one gets hurt. Someone gets knocked out of a chair every once in a while. But I just wanted to share this with you because it is a great way to reinforce what you've talked about in module number 1. Okay, I want to go ahead and clear that one off. And let's go ahead and go back to our standards. All right, so lesson 2, it's in your interest. Again, it gives you an overview. This lesson focuses on calculating the cost of credit, identifying the different lenders who provide it, and making good choices when using it. So here are our objectives. After you've taught it, they need to know potential sources of credit, compare credit sources, evaluate credit practices, and calculate the cost and demonstrate the ability to make good choices. There is one term on this, and APR. I know there's only one term, but there's a lot of talking that can be done about APR. So when I'm talking about it, I make sure they understand how the length of the loans, the term length, and the monthly payment can be affected by your APR. And of course, that all ties into credit score, which is the next section. So obviously, I always try to make them know that the higher the APR, the higher payment, and the overall cost of your purchase. You know, I tell them that many people are looking for a cheap monthly payment, but you know, that's what the lender wants you to do. When you're going to buy a car, you say, oh, I don't care how much it costs me, but I cannot make over a $400 a month car payment. That's the worst thing you can do. I just really hammer that home to them because of course it's what they want you to do. The longer the term of the loan, the more interest you're going to pay. So there's lots of ways that you can reinforce this. And I'm about to show you one in just a moment. Okay, so let me pull it up. In this game, the students are placed in the role of a loan shark. This activity allows them hands-on to see the effective interest rates, term lengths, and monthly payments like we just talked about with APR. So let's play. And so all the students will be playing. And I'm just going to go ahead and put my name in here. Oops. Okay. So you start with, you have mail, you're a new employer. You are the loan shark. You are trying to make money off the backs of hardworking Americans. So welcome to your first day at Shady Sam's. How do you make money? By issuing loans that make us a hefty profit. Customers will come in with requests. You get 3 loans to choose from. Offer the one that will make the most money for you. It's going to cost them the most money, but it's going to make the most money for you as a loan shark. So there are cards that are offered. It tells you your monthly payment on the amount they're wanting to borrow, the interest rate, APR, also the term of the loan. So these are all important things. Good luck, kid, and don't mess up. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, I'm just going to go through a few of these. Okay, you have your first customer knocking at the door. We're going to answer the door. Jerry, hey Shay, some bozo ran a stop sign and T-boned me and yada, yada, yada. I need a new car. It's going to be $18,500. Help me out. Okay, here's his loan options. Okay, so monthly payments. Okay, so they're all the same term length, all 48 months. This one's 6.5%, 7.5%, 8.5%. Well, of course, we want to charge them the biggest interest rate, so we're going to choose this one and see what happens. Okay, so obviously, this was the best option for me, the loan shark, the worst option for the client. But up here, it shows you what your income is so far. And my kids try to see how much money that they can make as a loan shark. It becomes a competition, and we write it down on the board, and whoever wins, I usually have a prize, even though I don't condone them being a loan shark. I want them to see what it would feel like on the other side as a consumer. All right, we'll do one more. Okay, Gertrude. Hi there, Shay. I need $2,000 for a new washer and dryer. I don't even like laundry, and now I have to spend all this money on it. Ugh. Okay, here's Gertrude's, her loan options. Okay, we have different term lengths, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. We all have the same APR. So, of course, the worst thing for Gertrude is the longer length, but the best thing for me as a loan shark is going to be 24 months. So I'm going to click on this one, maybe. There we go. Okay, yes, so that's going to make me the biggest profit. So that has added to how much I'm going to make. Okay, so this game goes on, and at the end, it will actually give you a loan shark nickname. There are some funny ones, and my kids can't wait to get to the end until they can see if they're Ruthless Rodney or whatever their name is. And it'll tell you exactly what your total profits were. Okay, so that is a great interactive to reinforce and enrich what we just talked about in module number 2. Okay, I'm going to shut this one down. Let's go ahead and go back. Okay, now on lesson number 3, your credit score. Okay, I spend a lot of time on this one. This one I feel is so important. And of course, it does affect what APR they're going to get on any loan that they get. It affects if they can get a cell phone. If I use that example, that really hits home with them. It affects so many things that's going to dictate their life. So I always tell my students every single year, every single semester, I don't teach credit score. I actually preach it because it dictates so many aspects of your life. And you can ask any student I've had, they always say, Miss McCrary says, you got to treat that credit score like a baby. You got to nurture it. You got to baby it. You have to change its diaper. You have to feed it. Yeah, they've heard me say this many times. So obviously the overview is to discuss the basics of credit reports and credit scores and how they are used in your life to make credit decisions. Objectives, they know the purpose of a credit report. They define the role and explain the importance of a good credit score. I always talk about what an average credit score, a good average credit score would be, which is, 700 would be a good average. I tell them what's bad and I tell them what's great, so that they know where they stand. Okay, so the terms in this lesson, they need to know that there are 3 credit bureaus that calculate that. So it's Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. They also need to know it's called a FICO credit score. I tell them why it's called a FICO. There's a great lesson in here. If you look on number 9, provide the student lesson in writing a loan activity. I do put students in groups of teams of 2 or 3 so they can discuss this. It will actually give the students scenarios, and they have to play the role of a loan officer. They have to determine, is this person a good credit risk based on the information that's given? And then when the students are done, then we have a full class discussion about which scenarios they got and what decisions they made. Something I do, and I just kind of made it up on the fly one day. It's a really good, engaging lesson, and I still call it the good credit, bad credit game. I actually use an app on my phone called a loan calculator. You can use other things like Bankrate. Okay, so like I said, I use my phone. I have an app, and I will Apple TV it up onto my TV so that I can walk around the room with my phone and put in the information. I like to walk around, talk to the kids, and be on the move myself. So therefore, that's why I use the app. But if you don't have Apple TV in your classroom, you can most certainly use this and just put it up on your smart board or your TV. I ask for volunteers. I'll say, who wants to be my person who has a good credit score? And then I always have a volunteer. And then I say, who wants to be my person who has a bad credit score? Then I use a scenario for dramatic illustration. You know, I can talk about it all day long, but unless they see how truly amazing it is, the interest you pay on a loan and the interest APR you get when you have a good score and a bad score, it's huge. And kids are actually usually shocked when I do this. Okay, so let's say I use Jennifer and she's my good credit score person. Okay, I always say, you guys are gonna buy the exact same car. You are going to buy a used car because you want a really fancy car. Let's say you're gonna get a Range Rover and you really don't wanna put out the bucks for a brand new one, so you're gonna buy a used one. So we're gonna spend $30,000. I honestly have no idea how much a used Range Rover would be. And I explained to students that 60 months is a typical amount of time, term length to borrow money for a car. Okay, the car is used. Okay, the interest rate. So Jennifer had the good credit score. So I told Jennifer, if I can get this to work, that she had a credit score of 700 to 750. So because she had a good credit score, they're going to give her a 6% on her loan. Okay, so 30,000. Oh, it said somehow I lost a zero. 30,000. There we go. Okay, so it looks like her estimated monthly payment, I think it's calculating for me, is $580. So she's borrowing 30,000. Here's her principal. Here's how much money she's going to pay in interest over the life of the loan. Now they're kind of shocked. They think that's a lot. I'm like, well, really? No, for a used car at 6%, that's not bad. I mean, you're being rewarded for a good credit score. Well, they really think it's bad when I use the person that has the bad credit score, Joshua. Let's say Joshua had the bad credit score. He's buying the exact same car, $30,000. He's financing it over the exact same amount of time. It's used. Well, Joshua has a 500 credit score. And so he is going to be penalized because he's a credit risk. Maybe he hasn't made payments like he's supposed to, or maybe he's got overextended credit card debt. So I make somebody get up and write this up on on a board, the dry erase board, that they're going to have a $580 car payment, and this is how much interest they're paying over the life of the loan. And then I put in the bad credit score person. Okay, let's say they're going to have to pay 18%. Okay, same car, same amount of time. Jennifer paid $580, Joshua paid $762. And look at this. This is the part that should hurt anyone. $30,000 car, they're going to pay $15,000 in interest. Jennifer paid less than $5,000. So they're going to pay almost $46,000 for a car that was only worth $30,000 5 years ago. So you get upside down in a car very easily. This really hits home. I even had a student this year tell me that she's not a big academic person. She doesn't like high school, but she told me most classes she thought were pointless. She's not planning on going to college, but that she would never, ever forget my lesson on credit score when I put this information up on the board. So I felt like I actually did my job because I hit home with at least one person in the classroom. Okay, so let's go back to lesson number 4, your credit score. Okay, so this section, the overview is to provide introduction to the various types of legislation designed to provide consumer protection. All right, so students should be able to explain key legislation and apply consumer and credit legislation. There's one vocab, consumer credit legislation. This section talks about a lot of the acts that have been put out there, such as Consumer Credit Protection Act, Truth in Lending Act. It is not my goal to have them memorize all of these different pieces of legislation. However, I would rather they be able to apply specific instances to this legislation so that they can understand how they are affected and how the lenders, how it affects the lenders. So I typically just use in this section something from my life, something that's happened to me in regards to a credit card or a loan. And that's pretty much all I cover on that section. And then I move on down to lesson 5, student loans. So this lesson examines the use of student loans to pay for a post-secondary education and provide tips on how to manage those loans. And it compares the costs and benefits of using federal student loans versus a private. So I do talk about federal and private loans. Federal obviously have a lower interest rate than private loans. And I explain the responsibilities of getting loans. And I also talk about, when we get down here to the vocab, I go through all of these. And work study, I give examples. I did work study in college, so I can give them a real life example that I worked in the finance department at the University of Arkansas. I made $40 a week, but that was $40 a week that I didn't have otherwise. So they love. I know all teachers know they love real life examples and stories. So I also talk about if you decide to leave college, like my stepson did after one semester, you have to start paying those loans back right away. So there are things that you have to be aware of before you make that financial commitment. Now, what I usually do during this time, there is a great student loan enhancement activity. It's called a Starburst activity. And you can have, I think it's right down here. I'll just show you guys what it looks like. So right here in the middle, so that you can see what they've learned. You can have them put student loans, you can have them put FAFSA, private loans, federal loans, and see what they learned or what they can find out about each of those vocab words. What I like to do at this point is get my counselor involved. They deal with FAFSA every day. I am not an expert on FAFSA, and I usually have them come in for at least half of one class and talk to my students about FAFSA. And there is a great interactive that goes along with this, and I'm going to pull it up right now. It's called Time for Payback. Okay, so this game simulates 4 years of college. It is a great way to enrich and enhance what you've just talked about with student loans. So they go through 4 years of college and the amount of student loan debt you could accrue over these 4 years based on decisions that you make. At the end of the simulation, it gives you a total debt that you have racked up in student loans. And then at the end, I won't let them clear off their screen. I'll say, when you're done, let me know, and I'm going to come around and see it. So, if they have student debt of $45,000 at the end of 4 years, which is probably pretty good, I make them divide it by 120. So that, because it's 10 years that you have to pay off a student loan. So I make them divide it by 120 to see what their monthly payment will be. I've had students that at the end will have $120,000 worth of debt. And then, when they divide it by 120, they're like, oh my gosh, and I have to pay that every month for 10 years? Yes, you do. So I don't want to discourage anyone from getting student loans, but I want you to understand you need to make good choices before you do that. So this simulation does a great job reinforcing that. So I'm going to click on Get Your Payback. I'll play just through a little bit of it. Amy, if I'm getting too long on time, please let me know, and I can cut this as short as I need to.
This is great. I'm really glad you're walking through some of these great resources.
Okay, well, this one is really fun. The kids love it. They want to play it multiple times because they want to see what the lowest amount they can get on getting through 4 years of college. So I tell them before we start, don't play this willy-nilly. I want you to put actual information in there and make actual decisions like you would make as a college student. How much debt do you want to rack up and how serious do you want to take college? So first thing they start with is their GPA. So I tell them to put in, what they think their approximate GPA is in high school right now. So let's just say I have a 3.739. Extracurriculars, okay. They're like, what does that mean? Well, are you involved? Are you a joiner or are you not a joiner? Do you like to be in clubs, sororities, fraternities? So they make a decision. So I'm a joiner. I'm going to put high. Choose your home state. So obviously we're in Oklahoma. Okay, now we're going to apply. All right, we have some choices here. Now they can go for in-state public education institution, and it shows cost, how much financial aid they can get. Or we can do out-of-state public. Well, you know, there's a big jump in price if you go out-of-state tuition. So here's the cost, $39,000. They can get financial aid of $19,000. Or you can do private school. Now that gets really pricey. I mean, is that something? And I tell them, is this something you think you can truly afford? I mean, do you think if you get no scholarships at all and you got a little financial aid, can you afford to do private school? So here's private school, and then here's community college. So it's 8,500. You get 8 of 900. So you make a choice. So I'm just going to say I'm going to do in-state public. Okay, you're a honeybee. You'll be saving a ton of money on tuition, and you're still close enough to home on the weekends, so you can go home on the weekends, not too bad. So I want you to make sure you pay attention to some things down here, and I call this my students' attention. First of all, after 1 year, I'm in my freshman year, I have racked up $8,014 in debt. That's my tuition. All right, so that's debt. Other things you need to pay attention to are focus. You've got to keep up with your classes. So, you know, it's the old saying, if you play, you pay, and no fun for Johnny makes Johnny a dull boy, something like that. So if you party too hard and you do too many extracurriculars, you're going to lose focus. So you have to keep your focus at a good level. Connections, it's all about networking and making new friends and meeting new people. So you got to keep your connections at a good level. And happiness, if you do nothing but study, and I tell them this story, I made that mistake as a freshman. I had a scholarship. I had to keep a certain GPA. I did nothing fun. All I did was stay in my room and study. And I almost just left and came home and went to a college near home because I was not happy. So you have to keep everything balanced. So you need to watch these as you go, because if you don't focus, you're going to flunk out of school. If you don't stay happy, you're going to drop out of school. And then keep track of your debt. All right, let's keep going. All right, you've got one final summer of freedom, and your neighbor wants you to spend a week of it house sitting. Okay, do you want to earn the extra money or no? Well, I'm a workaholic, so I'm going to say yes, I'm going to do it. Okay, they didn't warn you it was a mini zoo, 3 dogs, 2 cats, a parrot, and you, but you got $200 plus some scratches and a newfound fear of birds. Okay, when you get to college, you'll have to eat. Choose your meal plan. So my daughter's about to be a freshman next year, and we just went through this. Okay, do you want to starve to death and eat like a bird to save $1,000? Standards for no extra cost? Or are you a big eater and you want to gain that freshman 15? Well, I would just go with the standard. So I'll choose that one. Did not add anything to my debt. Oh, as you see, when you made your $200, it did deduct $200 from your debt when you did the animal sitting job. Okay, you'll have plenty to eat with this meal. But remember, it won't cover smoothies, coffees, or late night pizza. Freshman year is almost here. It's time to sign up for a dorm. All right, you're going to go for a single room for an extra $750 in cost, have a roommate for no extra cost, or stay in a quad room for less than to deduct $750. Okay, I'll stay in a quad with 3 other people. Hope I like them. Okay, as you can see, my debt decreased. My happiness, these levels are moving around, so you got to keep them at a midway point. Okay, you'll save money and always have company, but with 4 people, personality clashes are inevitable, and it may be hard to focus. You'll also need stuff for your room. Grab your cart and let's go shopping. Okay, so you click on something, it's going to tell you the cost. So yeah, you might need a trash can. Do I need a controller for my video games for $300 or a whole gaming system? I'm thinking no. Do I need a basketball goal? $30, I might need the stress reliever. I'm going to go for it. Okay, do I want scratchy but cheap sheets, or do I want the 800 thread count? There's a $40 difference. All right, I'm going to go for scratchy. So you buy a few items. It's going to add to your cost. So you see your debt's going to increase. New laptop is required. Which one will you want? Nothing fancy for extra $750. Cheap as it gets for an extra $250, or only the best for an extra $2,500. Okay, I'm gonna splurge. I'm gonna go for the expensive one. Again, my debt increase. Wow, the resolution on your Google Docs is going to be stellar. Okay, freshman year, here we go. I've made all my pre-college decisions. Freshman year starts. Amy, I'll just go for like 2 more minutes and then I'll cut this off. I don't want to go too long. If you never go off campus, you might lose your mind. How will you get around? Okay, will you take the bus, bike it, or bring a car? Well, if you bring a car, you know you're going to pay for parking. Taking the bus is a little inconvenient, but I like my freedom. Bringing my car, going to add to my debt because freedom is nice, but it will cost you $500 parking permit. Choices. You need to buy textbooks. They're not cheap. You want to buy new for $5.85, used, or rent books. Let's just rent them. That'll be good enough. Okay, so it increased my debt by a little bit. Renting is the cheapest route, but not always the easiest. You can't make notes in a book. If you lose it, you have to pay for a new one. Okay, working a job can help offset your expenses. How many hours a week do you want to work? Okay, well, you can just use your little mouse. Okay, well, I explain to students, sometimes they say, oh, I work at Sonic right now while I'm in high school. Well, that's a little different than when you're in college. So you don't want to work a full-time job. So you definitely want to scale it back just for extra spending money. Maybe you work 10 hours a week. Okay, so you see my connections are good. My happiness is okay. My focus, it's a little below midpoint, but I'm keeping a watch on it. Okay, so another thing pretty much everyone is rushing a fraternity or sorority. What about you? Well, it's expensive, but it's also wonderful. So am I social and make lifelong friends or no? Well, I'm social, so I'm going for it. Okay, so again, you can see how your debt is increasing. Going Greek gives you a built-in friend, but it's not cheap. And it's like it's a small time, not a small time commitment. It requires lots of hours. So I've had students, they flunk out. You see, when I joined the sorority, my focus went way down. Students will raise their hand. I just flunked out. I lost my focus. Oh, I lost my happiness. So I make them to start over and do it again. And then at the end, again, I make them look at their total debt after they go through freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. This game takes about 20 minutes to play. It's wonderful. Kids love it, and it does reinforce what we've just talked about with that last module.
Thank you so much, Shay. That was lots of really great information. You shared for the teachers that are watching, there was full of great resources to add on to, the State Department curriculum is an excellent base to make sure that everything is being taught, all the important components to make sure the standards are being met, but then adding those extra resources to really reinforce learning and to provide those meaningful moments of learning. And so Shay provided so many of those. There's a lot of new ones that I learned. I took some notes. I've heard about Shady Sam. Everybody should participate in that. But I also love that your students, their incentive and one of their favorite parts was getting their name at the end, their shady name. That's really funny.
I love that.
That's really good. And telling your students to treat their credit score like a baby. You have to nurture it, care for it. Excellent. And I love the idea of having the counselor come in and talk about the FAFSA. I think that's something that we hear from teachers all the time, and getting that in, and what a great person to bring into the classroom to make sure that that's being covered, and just somebody else to hear from. That's always a good thing. So lots of great, and of course your activity with the 3 people coming up to the room to volunteer, just the visual of that. That's a really simple activity, but the visual of that and the 3 different people, and I'm sure that really paints a picture of how much it's expensive to have a bad credit score. And so that's really great. So thank you so much, Shay, for sharing all those great resources and walking us through the State Department curriculum and what you use to spice things up a little bit to reinforce engagement and learning. So
thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's my passion. I love teaching personal financial literacy.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who listened to our time today to talk about Standard 7. Have a good day.